Thank you very much. My name is Pusiso Kaba. I'm the national chairperson of the PAC. We are in the NNLC Youth League Political School. Chairman, can you welcome us? Over to you.
Greetings, comrades. Greetings, National Chairperson from the Pan Africanist Congress of Azania, and our comrades who are here today in the School of Capacitating ourselves so that we can manage the struggle forward. As our principle have been stated clearly, we want democracy and we want a socialist state. And ours does not end there. We also advocate for the unity of Africa, like a solution to all what is happening, to our brothers and sisters across the across the continent that was divided. Thank you, National Chairperson. You can continue leadership.
Thank you very much. Today we're going to be looking at a topic that it's a little bit awkward, particularly with the aid that I'm going to use. We are looking at political analysis with the intention of developing a policy. So I will utilize an example of a policy development that I was involved in. So the information that is here is not necessarily what is already approved as policy, but the aim or the policy that I'm canvassing you on, but it's basically to show in a practical manner of how to conduct political analysis. Remember, we have spent quite a lot of time talking about a message and a campaign. The reason for that discussion, to understand the message holistically, was to prepare us for us to do proper organizing. That's an output of a campaign, because a campaign is led by organized people to mobilize people that become available to be organized. So, but what is the input of a campaign is always a policy. A campaign is a job of a campaign is to market a policy. That's why the messaging, because policy is a complex work that comes from a particular political framing that we have already discussed, that every political party has a particular framing, and that framing then leads to the next stage, which then becomes the stage of formulating a policy. And that policy then needs the formulation of a policy, because policy is a collection of data being synthesized into information, transformed into knowledge, and being ready to use as wisdom in implementation. But then it becomes knowledge of the party. So a party has to have its knowledge base well crafted. As I said, that we move from a position of organizing, that once we have a policy and we have immersed ourselves in the policy, we can be organized and we can take out messages there for use in the campaign as we market the policy. The policy that we're going to be using, for example, it's a policy that was developed to ask ourselves the question of income grant, income universal basic income, which had become very popular in many sectors of the world. Then it becomes, from a Pan-Africanist point of view, how would we look at this policy? How would we look at this idea and formulate it in a policy that can be accepted or rejected by ourselves? I will highlight as we go through, how do we really move through the policy. As the PAC, the tool that we have chosen for our analysis, it's basically dialectic materialism. Dialectic materialism, its genesis, or iqhamuka la khona kuhlanganiswa khona two schools of thought. Idealism, which is about fuzzy, more spirit-like element, and material, which is tangible and can be touched. Then it gets mixed with the element of history. So in the analysis of the Pan-Africanist movement worldwide, the historic background and the historic information and the cleaning up of the history to be truthful to what has happened, particularly what has happened to us as African people, then takes us to say what is material out of that, and what might be the ideal state that we are looking at. So there are three laws that are critical for dialectic materialism. The first law is the movement of the quantitative to the qualitative, which means that when we look at history, we look at art of numbers and chronology and the such, which is quantitative in nature. We then go deeper into qualitative. How does that then become meaningful to society? Qualitative analysis is always about the meaningfulness, whereas the quantitative always the amount and the biasness and the impact. And so qualitative, so that transformation from quantitative to qualitative, because as Pan-Africanists, as we indicated in our analysis, we always desire to be scientific. Our main objective is to be scientific. So scientific movement is that transformation of the qualitative to the quantitative. The second rule that is very important is the unity of the opposite. We believe or we apply the theory that the opposite, the thesis and the antithesis, we as Pan-Africanists, we are not working for the antithesis of whiteness, of Europeanness. We don't want, for example, to oppress and revenge against Europeans, because that will be a regression of society and regression of ourselves. We are not reactionary nationalists. Therefore, we are not pushing for destruction of others, which will be the thesis of Europe wanting to destroy Africa, or white supremacy wanting to destroy African people and African culture and African economy and African society. White supremacy want to destroy everything African and dominate European and extract economic value for themselves. And that's not our end game as Pan-Africanists. we want a better society. So we want to pull the two extremes and push to create a new extreme, which will be a synthesis. So we want to compare an antithesis and a thesis and an antithesis, make them to fight very aggressively so that they can produce something new. So as Pan-Africanists, we don't desire, for example, we don't desire the Africa that used to be. Hence, we are comfortable to denounce kingdomships and the way of governance that people will say that it's African culture. Therefore, why don't you embrace these things, which we feel that they are backwards with the technology, with the development of society where we are. The last rule then becomes negation of negation. Negation yinto ephikisayo. When you say, I wanna get to Manzini, the negation don't get to Manzini. However, we believe that that negative statement, which is negation, should be challenged by another negative statement that takes the discussion upwards. If you remember in our discussion of the campaign, I kept on highlighting that when you deal with a problem statement, you need to keep on questioning it. You keep on putting that negation so that you find sufficient depth in the problem, so that when you come up with a solution, you then come up with a solution that is transformative to society, which we call revolution. Because normally we think revolution as blood. Yes, blood is inevitable in the revolution, because those who defend the system then apply methods that spill blood if we are successful enough. However, the ultimate aim is to transform society. What do we transform society into? As I was indicating earlier, that I'm going to use this universal basic income grant policy as an example. Here we negated the fact that we need a better industrial society. We are saying that in this policy that as part of negation, that there is another question, that can workers will not control the means of society in the digital age. Workers don't control means of production in the industrial age, therefore it must change. But also in the digital age, workers will not necessarily control the means of production unless something else happened, unless we change the other rules changes. Looking at this policy, you will see that the first thing that we look at, as I was saying, is history. How has society developed? Where is our society now? So the question in Azania is that where are we in Azania? Are we still an agricultural society? Are we industrial society? Are we post-industrial society? When you look at us as a country of two cultures, as Azania, you will find that what is this? Basically, we are somewhere here when you look at corporate South Africa and basically the white culture. So those who work nice and live in comfortable, we are entering the post-industrial society. Whereas the majority of our people are still in the agricultural society as workers, or some of them are workers in the industrial society. But themselves, they are not, they are still specialized, dependent on the use of technology, particularly old technology. So these are the stages of development. So when you look at history, we can map where we are. The question becomes, where Gwangwane, Eswatini, where are we here in this development? Because on the basis of that quantitative analysis, we then have to get into the qualitative stage. Where are we in Africa in this stage? Please speak freely. I won't see you. Just shoot. With that quietness, I'll then proceed and say, I assume that you are still in agricultural. Over to you.
Yes, my leader. I think looking at how things are in the country, most Swazis depend more, this issue of agriculture, land, depend more on agriculture. But the only challenge that we are facing is that the land does not belong to the people. Everything belongs to the regime then. But most of Swazis are depending on agriculture. Then because the industries that we are operating here, we are working for white industries, not local industries. Who have come here for their own interests, but the issue of agriculture exists. Then on the point of ukuthi sikuphi silungele ini, you are in a point of ukuthi the mass is ready for change. Once about change, then I think there can be analysis that can improve the society. I think I'm on point in the way I view my lead. Thanks.
I will take you a little bit backwards, because my question was that, is the agriculture that we have commercial? Yes, most of the workers will work for the sugar industry and the timber industry, which is agricultural based, but is the majority not dependent on endaweni zokulusela inkomo na small gardens which will fall there in the horticulture?
Yes, my leader. Let me answer this one, my leader. Yes, in this issue of agriculture, yes, it is for commercial use in this country. But the problem we are facing in this country is that all the monies are channeled to one mouth, the democrative. So in this case, even as the Swazis, the nationalists, who are trying to have our small garden, or raising our own piglets, or trying our own farms, but it is not enough, because most of this land, we rent it. It is not in our positions. So
we are basically saying that we are horticulture pastoralist, but we are getting to agriculture is still immature.
Yes, it's very much immature that you're getting to agriculture.
Yes. So when you then look at history, as we are talking about the tools of analysis, you reflect on such. You reflect on such coldly to say that where we are when we analyze ourselves, what are the different numbers? What are the statistics saying? You see the difficulty of being a Pan-Africanist or a socialist in general is that socialism means that use data, use numbers aggressively. Don't use feelings and general opinions. You only use that when you have already transformed the concrete conditions or data. So socialism is nothing more than data-driven decision-making that is based on your true historical conditions.
So let me try to answer this one. Okay, in data, when I put it in data, I think there's a very likely people or very few people who do agriculture. Most of them, they rely on working for the Chinese in the industries. Yes.
So as you can see, as you are reflecting, that once you look at numbers, once you look at history, you will then find new insights that exposes you to another dimension. That's why this analysis become important on any policy you want to implement. I'm working from the position that that NLLC will be government. So as we move towards being government, we cannot bring policies of dreams. They fail. You bring policies of reality in the matters of the nation, or even in the matters of the party. When you are developing a strategy, you really must know what is our society, because the development of society also talks to the taste buds of society. So when you provide that sweetie that elect me, you must bring what the taste buds of the people, or what entertain their ears correctly. You must not miss where society is and talk your wish and dreams. Amel Cabral says people don't fight or struggle for what is in someone's head. They fight for their own lives and the lives and the better lives of their children. And the problem is that better life of their children and their own life is subjective, depending on the development of society. What time is it now in the development of society? Let's then move, leave you with that homework for you to do in terms of Eswatini or Swaziland. What time is it in our environment? There is another axis in the analysis. In each stage of development that we highlighted there, for example, in the slide before, there is a level of maturity. Remember, we said that we're transforming the quantitative to qualitative. The qualitative then becomes the level of maturity of a society in that particular stage. When we say that we're in the agricultural stage, our people are agriculture, or we're in the industrial stage. So if we are in the agricultural stage, we won't jump the level of maturity of the culture there. The culture will have these three levels, which is conventional, which then take to pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional morality, because the qualitative is what morals do people have in the society. So when you are still immature in that stage of development, everyone is worried about punishment and obedience and orientation. So that's the first stage. In each of these levels, there's 2 stages. It's like you are moving up the steps. And you then move to an area where everything is relative. You are starting to say that I must obey all the rules as given. Then because you are a learner, when you are a learner, you just absorb. You start stage 2 of questioning what is good and bad. You will see when you then get to conventional, you start having separation, things are in black and white. And it's a matter of obeying the rules. You see now you move from where you did not understand the rules. You were just learning them and absorbing them. You start questioning them. However, in the second part, you really know now what is right and wrong. You operate in what is right and wrong. You broke the rule or you are within the rule, and it goes so. When society is about to change, you then look at the social contract. That is your problem now with the royal family now. That you are saying that the social contract is not right. You cannot accumulate wealth and spend wealth as you like, because we have to look at the social contract. You are looking at the values and say, are these values generic and ethical? You see now on this slide, you are focusing on the quality, and you are moving, you are transforming from one level to another, being driven by the data that came, understanding the data better, making you better within the stage, and move beyond so that you can break through to the next level of development. I would like your comment before we move on. From the quantitative in the slide before to the qualitative in the slide that we are on, as you see yourself maturing as a society, as you question the qualitative part of the society and reflecting how does then it affects our policy posture and our messaging to the community.
May you please repeat the question I did?
I was saying, just as a reflection on these 2 slides.
Yes, my lead. From my submission can be that, comrade, you are speaking in when you say in the policy, the policies that we need them policy of reality, not a policy of dreams. Then there is a question that it always come across from those opportunities and the barriers la counter the capitalist and say socialism failed. They once make an example. When you say socialism is about using statistics, I hear you, my leader. May you answer this question when they say socialism failed and they will look into the Soviet Union, how the Soviet Union collapsed. And now most countries across, some still believe that they are shifting to capitalism, to the capitalist Nazar. May I ask that question so that you can clarify it, Africa, on that point of view? Lama question labesa kamga abaganjalo to our comrades.
Thank you very much. We have never had a full or even a half socialist country yet. All the countries that we have been state capitalist. It's because we were moving from one stage to another. USSR jumped stages. It moved from a feudal state to a communist state. And that jump is too big. So they did not do policy according to their concrete reality. They did not push for the majority of society. Having said that, there were less people who were short of food in USSR than in the USA. There were less people on the street in USSR than in America. The only thing that America and Europe has is more billionaires than the USSR. So it's not correct that socialism failed in USSR. It did not fail. If you talk to Chinese, they will always tell you that they are building socialists. Nowhere where they say they are socialists, but they are building socialism. And they learned from the USSR that the posture, look at your ground reality, experiment, go back and get more data, analyze it further, realize your mistakes of analysis, create a better policy. They normally say that when they compare the US and China, that China changes it changes its policy more often than the USA. The USA changes governments and it never changes policy. China never changes government, but it always changes policy because China comes from a socialist orientation. So they always seek to say, what is data telling us? What can we learn from the data, the new data that we collected? Therefore, what is the new decision that we have to take when we do negation of the negation? So we are in the process of building socialism. They should not hurry us. There are questions in a socialist state that we have not answered. Fidel Castro, before you come in, Fidel Castro says a very interesting thing. He says in Cuba, they thought that they have mastered socialism by creating cooperatives. Only for him in his reflection to realize that cooperatives are thought of from a capitalist orientation. Over to you.
I have a question, Chief. Now that you mentioned the the negation of negation rule, I did not get it well when you explained it earlier. So now you are using it again. I'm getting more confused. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Let me come back to that question. Can I just check that the previous question, is it sufficiently taking you to the right direction? Because I've got no intention to answer you fully.
No, you've answered me. You've answered me, leadership. You've answered me, Maverick. Yeah, you've answered me.
Those are the issues when we read history and we look back. We need to question, because there are no holy cow, including the explanation that I have given. We need to look at the real concrete data and then question what has happened. Basically, then to answer the next question, the negation, it's putting out a negative statement, is to disagreeing with the existing. So when there is negation of the negation, in mathematics, negative multiplied by a negative become a positive. So in this scenario, because we do not want to stay at the same place, so we say that we do not want this, but we need another deeper negative question to take us to the next step of analysis. It must not just be as a straight line, because a straight line would leave us being in a straight line. Equal, positive, and a negative leave you at neutral. And you don't want to go to neutral. We want to go to the next stage. So we want to add another negativity that will, a negative questioning that will take us to the next level. I do not know if comrades, you want to comment before the comrade who has asked the question comes back.
It's clear leadership.
So it's a style of questioning yourself. It goes back to the similar methodology that we're using of saying why 5 times. Can you push whatever you have said? If you say why, can you say why 5 times so that you can get to the real reason of what the thing happened? So negation of negation is the same thinking as the 5 why technique. Then moving to the example of application of these 3 rules. Transforming from quantitative to qualitative, a unity of the opposite, which takes us out of extremism, because we really look at another perspective, and then a negation of the negation. So,
Chief.
Yes.
Yes. This issue of transition from qualitative to quantitative, is it like that?
Come again?
The transition from qualitative to quantitative. I want to ask a question about that one.
Yes, that one, it means that don't ask when you read history and when you read the present, don't use qualitative means. Use numbers, use data, verified data to determine the real reality. The real truth. Then when you have done that, you then have to find insights from that data. Now it's moving from being just a series of numbers and graphs towards being insight or knowledge. The example was that history, we are in this stage of development, but in this stage of development, our orientation is in this stage, at this level of maturity of our culture as an agriculturalist society, because data has told us that we're an agricultural society. Then we go into being an agricultural society. and work on the qualitative part of that stage. So as a data scientist, that's why I was saying that if you talk to data scientists, they will talk about data coming through, transforming into information, then we extract insights. So those insights become the qualitative element of what you started with as quantitative.
I get you, I get.
So in application of this, we looked quickly to say that in this policy, which was the policy of universal income grant, we were looking at what is the problem in society now, which we had then used by questioning ourselves, where are we as society? So when we did the 3 exercise, we then find that that we are now in the world general, which is dominated by the North. The North basically is going towards post-industrial economy. Unfortunately, the North dictate what we do as the world, as a global society. So they are in post-industrial economy. That's why they talk about technology, digital technology, and the such. So the problem is that the accumulating of wealth, it's so biased now. When you look at technology, it accumulates wealth to the few. It's gonna disseminate, it's gonna kill savings. Technology is just gonna take jobs. It started by Tata Msebenzi. Now it's taking everything. Even now we can replace lawyers with artificial intelligence. We can put all the facts to a machine and it makes the judgment that the judge needs to get, and get itself other information like the law, what is the law, therefore what it should compare with. So even the white collar jobs that people are so proud of will disappear, not might, will disappear in the future of this global society. That's why America not controlling the post-industrial economy, because they control the industrial economy. They are so panicking because the Chinese are doing 6G while they could not do 5G. So you are looking now at the fast transforming. The prices of goods will drop dramatically, that it will practically be infeasible to own a factory, because you will not have the kind of factory in the modern perspective. On the other hand, even technology will be so cheap that everyone can start up their own factory. So there's a seed of democratization inside, but there's a big risk that this democratization of technology and the likes happened when the corporates are so family, so they accumulate themselves. So we foresee that the insecurity and everything will collapse society if society does not transit into the next stage, which then told us that the welfare system needed to transit from the industrial era to the digital era perspective. So now we are looking at the data was put in, we got those insights, and now something is emerging in terms of what then do we understand the future society to be. Compared to the old. The old were worried about ownership of things. In the future, already, when you need a car in Azania, when you're around, when you need a car, you just call your personal driver through Uber. And through an app, you just say, pick me up here, drop me here. You can call that car at any time. It comes within 5 minutes or so. It's with you in the major cities. So why should you own a car? Car is available and you pay when you only need it. And the contest is the cheapest. So as you saw earlier, we are saying prices are gonna drop dramatically in the way that it cannot sustain the society that used to be. Things used to be done in mass. There were 5 products you have to choose on. In the future, not in the future, basically in the present, now you can choose your own color of jean, your own size with your own length of, so the production now is personal rather than, and it's fast, because personal used to take months. Now it's fast, it's here, they can print the trouser. Not even manufacture it, just print it, because technology allows it. People are no longer brand loyal. Everything lies in insight rather than information, which takes us to your point about socialism. Before there was information, now there's insight. And socialism is built on insights. People used to worry about what they know. Now we work in networks. As we are, as Pan Africanists, we can network internationally with ease now. I don't have to drive 500 kilometers to meet you. I can meet you every day now. Everything is going to be this, the monopolies are going to die. Therefore, good jobs are gonna go away for those who are looking for good jobs. So we were saying that society then has to choose a paradigm. Either we improve what exists, or we transform it dramatically. We change dramatically where it exists. On this, we're talking about the welfare. So we're saying that if we had to have a welfare policy, do we choose a welfare of the future, or we choose a welfare of now? This answer depending where we are in this maturity. When we are on level 3 with the policy development, yes, we must choose the future. If we're on level 1, we must improve the existing in the policy document. That's the beauty of policy compared to ideology. Ideology is static, has to be learned and understood. Policy is dynamic and moving with times. So you continuously evaluate if the data that you based your policy on was correct, or is it still correct? Because it might be wrong because of time. It might be wrong because it was not collected correctly. Then you understand where you are in the maturity. Is society ready for a radical transformation or revolution? Or is society ready for minor transformation, which is reforms? We then, in this case, said, looking at the 2 paradigms of a basic income grant and the welfare, which one do we choose? As I said, it's led by the discussion before to say that which paradigm are we on? If we are on a revolutionary paradigm and society is ready, not us as a policymaker, but when I say us as a society. So we then put a roadmap based on our understanding and application of those rules. I think the point was that the 3 rules that we have, on the 3 rules, then you can build then your analysis and complete it. Outcome of that analysis become a policy that has to be formulated into a campaign, taken into bites that are sufficient and messaged accordingly, and identify the right partners to work with, starting with the executive of our own organization, so that we are clear on where we are going. And if you look at the campaign discussion that we got, you'll see that the roadmap is quite similar to that discussion that we had in the campaign discussion. So analysis become important to formulate a policy on the basis that you will campaign. A campaign that will give you people for you to organize, because it will mobilize people for you, and it will mobilize other sectors of society that you had not space to get into. On that note, let me stop there and take questions before we then go towards closure. No, the quietness means that we have come to almost an hour of our discussion. I would not want us to go much further. Chair, let me hand over to you or someone that to delegate for them to close for us and just reflect on the discussions of today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, political educator, national chairperson. May I humbly request that before we can make a closure, may I recognize the Secretary General of the Swaziland National Association of Teachers, Comrade Sigelela, to say something, as he is one of the cadre that is supporting campaigns that are being led by Congolese young heroes. Comrade SG, please say something, my lead.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks, Comrade Chair. Although I think you have putting me on the spotlight, but then we welcome the challenge into saying thank you so much to the facilitator for delivering such a mind-blowing kind of an engagement. There's this adage that goes like, you see, if you're a person, you learn until you die. And I think as activists, as political activists, we've got to embrace and adopt that as well, because the day-to-day and constant engagement on issues such as this one, it opens up our minds. And I think today's discussion, particularly on the levels of understanding, it is important that we understand the different levels, because it then allows us, and it also informs us in terms of the strategy that we need to craft or to put together if we want to launch a major offensive. But it is also clear, as the facilitator has said, to say without a clear policy, practical one, you cannot be able to do anything, because our strategies and our campaigns must be backed by realism, and realism depends more on the depth of our understanding of historical issues and world affairs. I just remember when we were talking about, you see, the issue of communism versus socialism, capitalism. You see the interplay between and amongst those systems of society. It is very it may seem basic, but it is important that we understand these things and we engage on these things. constantly so. Community facilitator and the rest of the delegates here present, we just want to say we hope that this education program, compulsory as it may be, but we need to take a conscious decision as activists to learn from the education program, because learning can never be compulsory, but it is always voluntary. So we need to volunteer to learn so that we can be able to then change attitudes, because learning without any attitudinal change and behavioral change is as good as not there. With those few words, we want to say thank you very much, and we will still expect more from you, community facilitator, to deliver a mind-blowing engagement and lessons similar to this one in the future. And I want to also encourage the youth. Comrade Chair, you have a responsibility. I don't know, probably can talk about some of these things on the sidelines after this session. Otherwise, thank you very much for to everyone who participated in this activity and engagement. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think it's well closed. Comrades, thank you very much for the day. Let's then meet next week, same time.
Mandla.
Awethu.